to have other people say, yes, I see you as a legitimate person. I see your art as legitimate. I see your existence as legitimate, whatever the case may be. And we hope that that fulfills us. So I'm not sure if this was like a regional thing or if it was just my attention thing, but Samuel Delany had never been on my radar ever, period. I think it was probably maybe 6 months ago, Delaney hit my radar, and I get really fascinated, just sort of with his background, and kind of got looking into it. And some people had mentioned Dahlgren, and which I don't actually have an intention to read anytime soon. But it got me very heated to read some Samuel Delany, and so I picked up Nova and crushed this book. This is some really good stuff. I know you probably hear that a lot. We could probably do a super cut where it's just like, this is really good stuff. This is really good stuff. All he has to do is say it's really good, because that's the way he's going to feel about it all the time. This book scratched a lot of itches that I've had for a long time. And it's really difficult for me to actually put this into words. One, I'm a sucker for prose like honey, and Delaney's prose are absolutely delicious. Even in the first couple paragraphs, I felt like I knew exactly what kind of world this was set in. He didn't even have to be explicit about the sort of filth and dirtiness and usedness of this world for it to just instantly bite. And I don't know what it is about good prose that can do that, where you can literally just drop a single word or a modifier into a sentence, and suddenly there's three-dimensionality to a fictional world, and it's right there at the get-go. There's something very real about Delaney's prose that it's unusual to find with people who are intentionally trying to gild the lily. And I that's not an insult to Delaney at all, but he's definitely gilding the lily. And, you know, you look at a book this length, and you think, man, you can't pack too much into something like that. And while the plot itself is very straightforward, and the ideas that the book sort of wrangles with are, they're not all that deep, there is a three-dimensionality to this world that you don't get with things, with the authors like Larry Niven. And I bring up Larry because I've talked about him on the channel before. Larry is a very formulaic writer. He writes in a very dry style that is very democratic and open to many kinds of readers and many modalities. And, what's one of the things that separates what we like about literature, what we like about certain writers from others. And sometimes people really like very flowery prose. And some writers think that the only way that they can be a good writer is to write very, very ornately and, spin off their, their chops. And it's cool. I mean, writers have as much to prove to themselves as they do to anybody else. And so if you can sit down and pound out some prose that do all of those things that gild the lily and show your chops and create a three-dimensional world for a reader, then more power to you. I think that of the science fiction writers that I've read that are really, really great at prose, there's something about Delaney's that really stands out. It's funny. One of the characters in this book is actually trying to write a novel in a sort of anachronistic way. The time that the book is set in the 31st century, novels are no longer a thing. They're archaic. People like to entertain themselves through a psychorama, which is basically a brain link where you're experiencing the thoughts and feelings of somebody else in an emotional situation that have had their brain waves recorded. So it's very far from a book. And this character sort of opines throughout Nova the virtues of books. And while he's also trying to suss out exactly how to write a book, because no one could teach him how to write a book, in this very thorough way, he's trying to rediscover the art of writing. And he's looking for legitimacy. And that seems to sort of be this constant theme that resurfaces through this book. You've got this wild science fiction setting, but really what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a book about class and a book about how different members of different classes seek to legitimize themselves and to find legitimacy in themselves. And I think that one of the accepted sort of, quote, childish attempts to find legitimacy is to seek it outside, to seek approval of other people, and to have other people say, yes, I see you as a legitimate person. I see your art as legitimate. I see your existence as legitimate, whatever the case may be. And we hope that that fulfills us. But then I think sometimes what we discover as adults is that the real fulfillment of that feeling of feeling legitimized and feeling like a legitimate human, it doesn't come from outside, it comes from inside. And in a way, it's a very simple human tale, as most good books are. And it's wrapped up in a beautiful little science fiction package here. As it pertains to class, the real fulcrum of the book is you've got two rich guys trying to poke each other in the eye. And you've got one rich guy that believes that he is absolutely legitimate, and the other, in a way, knows that he is legitimate, and he knows that his counterpart is illegitimate, despite the enormous sums of wealth the two share. And peppered in with that are the lives of the working class. One of the sort of central notions that comes across is the connection that the individuals, the working class individuals, have to their work. And in a lot of ways, the main character, Lork, you could argue whether or not he's the main character, but in this explanation, the main character, Lork, is also, he shares this ability with the laborers, with the working class, to tap in directly into a vessel or whatever their work happens to be. They can all literally tap in with a wire and a socket attached to their brainstem and control the mechanism with their own neurons. And so it gives people a closeness to their work and a closeness to their labor that at some point in their history had been lost. And when they reached a point in technological progress in their own past, everything was automated to a point that people had no value in their labor. You could go into an office building and run an entire factory at a computer terminal and not think twice about it, and then go home and wonder why you even exist. And somebody had postulated that this was the root of everyone's ennui and their their anxiety about purpose and legitimacy as humans. And so the necessary way to fix this was to relink them to their labor. And there's something fascinating about that idea. It's a little perverse, but I don't think it's far off necessarily from being true. And so essentially you have an entire labor class that is able to migrate across the galaxy doing whatever kind of work he or she chooses to plug into. And when they do that, they have a direct connection to their work, and they have a meaningfulness and a legitimacy that comes from doing this work. There were a lot of moments in this book that really struck me where the language appealed to a sort of a foreign essence, and sometimes there was something very familiar about it. And in my mind, reading it, it was as if somebody were describing these moons, these these foreign spatial bodies as these wild mixes of sort of the Mediterranean and the Deep South. And I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. And there was a dirtiness and a filthiness to the environments. And one of the characters actually goes into a little bit of explanation about that at some point. But there was something familiar, and I kept coming back around to it. And after finishing the book, there's a passage in the back that gives a short little discussion about Delaney and his past. And one of the things that it mentioned is that he had been a migrant laborer for some time in the early 60s and had actually worked on a shrimping boat in the Gulf of Mexico. And that was immediately, it just occurred to me that that's exactly what it was. That was the familiarity. There was something that he had captured in the gritty, laborious nature of the Gulf of Mexico and New Orleans and coastal Mississippi and Louisiana, that somehow, without even really being intentional, filtered into this three-dimensional world that he produced in prose. And that's something that I really want to come back around to and just sort of conclude with this idea that I was talking to my brother recently about Vangelis, the musician and the composer, and he said, I really I don't know if I really understand Vangelis. I've listened to it, I get it. I don't know, but I don't know if I get it. And I was like, yeah, the thing about Vangelis is that Vangelis is a tableau. And sometimes we listen to music in a very purposeful way. We're listening to the lyrics, we're listening to the song, we're emotionally investing in the music, whatever it is. And sometimes the music is more than that. It's ethereal in a way that sets a stage in our minds and holds us there. And I think that Brian Eno is a musician that works in tableau. And Vangelis is a musician that works in tableau. And I think that Samuel Delany is an author that works in tableau. And, in that way, in a very efficient, straightforward, but beautifully constructed and worded way, he's able to tell a very clean story, a very straightforward narrative, but it's delicious in its verbosity. It's delicious in its wordiness. It's wonderfully written. It was just genuinely a joy to read and to discover. And I do want to read more Delany, and I have more Delany on my shelf. This was just a really delightful introduction, and I can't recommend it enough. I know a lot of you have probably read it. It's cool. You should tell me your thoughts. Maybe you didn't like it as much as I did, but I genuinely enjoyed this, and I highly recommend it. I do want to just pop in here at the end. This is sort of like a reverse plug, I think. So I have a little eBay store, and I started giving out these bookmarks in the sales. So there may be new viewers that have come to the channel, not directly from YouTube, but from the eBay store. And I'm sure that there may be viewers that have gone from the channel to the eBay store, and that's cool. And I really appreciate that. I just want to say thank you for your business. It means a lot. I am not a business person. I'm not a good capitalist. I'm trying my best with this. And I understand that eBay has a lot of fees. They have a lot of fees for me. I'm a month into this now, and I'm just sort of like getting my footing and getting a feel for it all. My goal is to offer high quality books, readable books, or collectible books. And I want to deliver these in a safe and proper manner. So I've really gone out of my way to make sure that as books are shipping, that they're packaged correctly and appropriately, and that it's a fun package to open, with stickers and bookmarks and things like that. But in any case, the pricing is weird, and eBay is expensive, life is expensive, shipping is expensive, all the things are expensive now. We live in dystopia. So if you go to the eBay page and you see books that you want to buy and you think, that's an incredibly high price. I have to start somewhere, and I pretty much accept all reasonable offers. So if you see something and that is not in your budget, but you have an idea of what you're able to pay for something, hit me up, send a little thing, make an offer. I pretty much accept them all. I have a lot of stuff that's not listed yet. I'm just going to slowly trickle it in. So you can keep an eye on it if you want. Either way, like I said, I'm not a good businessman, but this is my hustle right now. So, and apparently this is the only hustle I've ever attempted that really kind of seems, like a fun thing. It's fun. I like selling books. I'm a bookstore. Yeah, I don't know. Thanks. I appreciate you watching. Take it easy. Have a great weekend.